Hello, dear viewers. I'm Alex, and I'm thrilled to have you join me today. In this episode, I'll share the heartfelt story of Lily Harper, a woman who faced challenges within her family that ultimately led to growth, healing, and transformation. Through Lily's journey, we'll uncover how standing up for yourself, embracing change, and fostering genuine relationships can create a more meaningful life. It's a story about the power of independence, humility, and second chances, lessons that resonate deeply in today's world. So, grab a cup of coffee or tea, sit back, and let's dive into the story of Lily Harper. The early November chill seeped through the cracks of Lily Harper's sleek Seattle apartment as she packed her suitcase for another Thanksgiving trip. The skyline shimmered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, a constant reminder of the life she had built, a life defined by independence, hard work, and grit. At 35, Lily was proud of where she stood. She had earned every inch of her success, rising through the ranks to become a senior director at a biotech firm, all without relying on anyone but herself. But the thought of another family reunion filled her with unease. This year, the gathering was at the luxurious Fairmont Orchid Resort in Hawaii, funded as always by her grandfather, Samuel Harper, the self-made millionaire who had been the family's financial lifeline for decades. For most, the idea of a tropical Thanksgiving sounded like paradise. For Lily, it was a stage for old wounds and unspoken resentments to resurface. As she zipped up her bag, her thoughts drifted to her family. There was her younger sister, Emily, a former influencer whose carefully curated Instagram posts screamed perfection. But beneath the filters, Lily knew the truth: Emily's lavish lifestyle, designer bags, extravagant vacations, private school for her son, was sustained entirely by their grandfather's generosity. Then there were her parents, Margaret and Thomas, enjoying their retirement in Arizona, their comfort wholly reliant on Samuel's support. To Lily, their dependence felt like a betrayal of the values Samuel had always preached to her: self-reliance, hard work, and dignity. Samuel had taught her the importance of standing on her own 2 feet. "Money gives you freedom, Lily," he would say, "but only if you know how to respect it." Those lessons had shaped her life. But while she had thrived on them, her family had leaned on Samuel's wealth, letting entitlement replace effort. The flight to Hawaii was smooth, but Lily couldn't shake her apprehension. She arrived at the resort, dragging her suitcase across the polished marble floors. The grandeur of the lobby, the soaring ceilings, lush tropical decor, and subtle Hawaiian motifs, only heightened her unease. This wasn't just a vacation spot, it was the perfect stage for her family's performance of perfection. As she approached the front desk, she handed over her confirmation email with a polite smile. The receptionist frowned. "I'm sorry, Miss Harper," she said hesitantly. "There doesn't seem to be a reservation under your name." Lily's heart sank. She suspected who was behind this. "Lily." Emily's voice rang out, high-pitched and theatrical. Turning, Lily saw her sister strutting across the lobby in a designer sundress, her golden hair perfectly styled, a Hermes bag dangling from her arm. "You finally made it." Emily's smile was sweet, but her eyes held a glint of satisfaction. "Oh no, no reservation. That's so strange. I guess only the immediate family was on the list." It wasn't the first time Emily had taken a shot at Lily, but this was a new low. Lily took a deep breath, her calm demeanor masking the anger simmering beneath. "I see," she said evenly. "Thank you for clarifying." Without raising her voice or losing her composure, she added, "It's good to know where I stand." Emily blinked, momentarily thrown off. "Oh, don't take it personally," she said, flipping her hair over one shoulder. "You've always been the independent one. I'm sure you can figure something out." Lily didn't respond. Instead, she turned to find her parents, standing awkwardly nearby. Their eyes darted away when hers met theirs. Their silence was a deeper wound than Emily's words. Later that evening, sitting on the balcony of a modest hotel room she had booked nearby, Lily gazed out at the Pacific. The waves shimmered under the moonlight, a calming contrast to the turmoil in her heart. She couldn't ignore the growing rift between herself and her family, a divide made wider by their unwillingness to confront the truths she couldn't unsee. The next morning, Lily called her grandfather. "Grandpa," she said, recounting the events at the resort. "I don't think I can keep doing this." Samuel's deep voice was steady but tinged with frustration. "I'm sorry you were treated that way," he said. "You've always been the one who truly understood what I hope to teach this family. I think it's time for a change." Lily didn't press for details. She knew her grandfather well enough to trust that he would act with clarity and purpose. The following Thanksgiving, the Harper family was smaller but more genuine. Emily had moved to a modest suburban home and traded her designer handbags for quiet evenings with her son. She sent Lily a heartfelt invitation to dinner, and for the first time in years, Lily accepted. At Emily's dinner table, there were no lavish centerpieces or curated photo ops, just laughter and warmth. After the meal, Emily handed Lily a small box. "I've been thinking about how I treated you," Emily said, her voice trembling. "You've always been my example of strength, even when I couldn't see it." Inside was a bracelet, simple yet elegant. "I don't expect forgiveness," Emily said, "but I hope we can start again." Lily smiled, tears welling in her eyes. "We already have," she replied. As she drove home that night, Lily reflected on how much had changed, not just in her family, but in herself. For years, she had let their dysfunction weigh her down, but now, she felt lighter. They were finally learning what she had discovered long ago, the value of standing on one's own feet. The future wasn't perfect, but it was promising. Lily rolled down her window, letting the crisp November air fill her car. She smiled, ready for what came next. The Hawaiian sun was setting as Lily Harper leaned against the balcony railing of her modest hotel room, staring out at the endless stretch of the Pacific. She hadn't planned to spend Thanksgiving alone, especially not after traveling all the way to Hawaii for a family reunion. But after the events of the day, solitude felt like the only logical choice. It had started as expected, with Lily arriving at the luxurious Fairmont Orchid, her suitcase rolling across the polished marble floors of the grand lobby. The resort was as extravagant as the Harper family had come to expect, its pristine beaches and swaying palms a fitting backdrop for their curated holiday traditions. But for Lily, the beauty of the place only highlighted the growing tension in her family dynamics. At 35, Lily had built a life she was proud of. As the senior director of research at a biotech firm in Seattle, she had worked tirelessly to achieve the kind of financial stability her family had always taken for granted. Her independence was a quiet rebellion against the entitlement that defined so many of the Harper clan. While her younger sister, Emily, flaunted her Instagram-perfect life, funded almost entirely by their grandfather's generosity, Lily had chosen a different path. "Ms. Harper, I'm sorry, but we don't have a reservation under your name," the receptionist had said earlier that afternoon, her voice apologetic but firm. Lily had suspected something like this. The Harper family's unspoken hierarchies and quiet exclusions had always left her on the fringes, but this was a new low. Emily's voice had rung out moments later, dripping with false sweetness. "Oh, Lily. You're here. But no reservation? That's strange. I guess the real family made the list this year." Her smirk had been as sharp as the heels of her designer shoes. Lily had taken a deep breath, her voice calm and steady. "Good to know where I stand," she'd replied, not giving Emily the satisfaction of a reaction. She had turned to her parents, hoping for some acknowledgement, some defense of her place in the family. But Margaret and Thomas had looked away, their silence cutting deeper than Emily's words. Now, as the ocean waves lapped against the shore below, Lily replayed the moment in her mind. She had always known her family's priorities didn't align with hers, but this was the first time she'd felt the weight of their exclusion so clearly. For years, she'd endured their passive-aggressive barbs and thinly veiled judgment, all for the sake of maintaining peace. Today, she had reached her limit. The next morning, Lily sat in a quiet cafe near her hotel, a warm breeze carrying the scent of saltwater and coffee. She dialed her grandfather's number, unsure of how he would respond. Samuel Harper had always been the family's backbone, a self-made millionaire whose lessons on hard work and independence had shaped Lily's life. But his generosity had also created an environment where dependence and entitlement flourished. "Grandpa," she said when he picked up, "I wanted to let you know I won't be staying at the resort." He was silent for a moment before responding, his voice steady but tinged with concern. "What happened?" Lily recounted the events, keeping her tone even. She didn't embellish or point fingers, but she didn't hold back the truth either. By the time she finished, Samuel let out a heavy sigh. "I've failed this family in some ways," he admitted. "I wanted to give everyone opportunities, but instead, I created reliance. You're the only one who understood what I was trying to teach, Lily. Thank you for reminding me of that." "What do you mean?" she asked. "You'll see," he said simply. "But for now, focus on enjoying your time in Hawaii. You've earned it." When Lily returned to Seattle, she found an email from her grandfather waiting in her inbox. It had been sent to the entire family. Subject: A change in priorities. Family. This year's Thanksgiving has shown me that it's time for a new approach. My financial support has always been meant as a tool to help you build independence, but it's become a crutch instead. Starting now, I'm restructuring the way I offer help. Emily and Brian, you will receive a final sum to pay off debts, but going forward, you must live within your means. Margaret and Thomas, I'll assist in downsizing to a more manageable lifestyle. Lily, you've always embodied the values I hold dear. I'm proud of you for standing strong and leading by example. Love. Grandpa. The fallout was immediate. Emily called, her voice shaking with a mix of anger and desperation. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said. I've always felt like you thought you were better than us." Lily sighed, her voice soft but firm. "Emily, I've never thought I was better. I just wanted you to see there's more to life than appearances." Emily was quiet for a moment before whispering, "I think I'm starting to." Months later, Emily invited Lily to her new, modest home for dinner. It wasn't an extravagant event, just a simple table set with care and a warm, home-cooked meal. After dinner, Emily handed Lily a small gift. Inside was a framed photo of the two of them as children, laughing on a family trip long before their relationship had grown strained. "I've been holding on to this," Emily said, her voice trembling. "I hope we can get back to that someday." Lily smiled, tears welling in her eyes. "Me too." As she drove home that evening, Lily felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. Her family was far from perfect, but they were learning, just as she had. For the first time, she felt hope, not just for them, but for the possibility of something better. The crisp Seattle air filled her lungs as she parked outside her apartment. The city lights shimmered against the dark sky, a reminder of how far she had come. She smiled, ready for whatever came next. The Seattle rain tapped softly against Lily Harper's apartment window as she sat with a cup of tea, scrolling through old emails. It had been months since that tense Thanksgiving in Hawaii, but the ripples from that weekend were still unfolding. Her family, once seemingly impervious to change, was now grappling with the reality of their choices. And for Lily, it had been a season of reflection, growth, and cautious hope. The day after Thanksgiving, Lily returned to Seattle feeling both liberated and conflicted. Walking away from her family's dysfunction at the Fairmont Orchid had been a bold step, but it wasn't easy. She had spent years trying to maintain peace, avoiding confrontation even when their passive-aggressive remarks and veiled criticisms cut deep. This time, she had drawn a line. The memory of her grandfather's phone call lingered in her mind. Samuel Harper, the family patriarch, had listened quietly as Lily explained the events at the resort, Emily's deliberate exclusion, her parents' silent complicity, and Lily's decision to leave. His response was measured but resolute. "I've been enabling this for too long," he had said. "It's time for things to change." What Lily hadn't expected was just how far her grandfather would go. A week later, Samuel sent an email to the entire family. The subject line was simple: a new direction. The email outlined his decision to restructure his financial support. Emily and her husband, Brian, would receive one final payment to settle their debts but would have to adjust to living within their means. Margaret and Thomas would need to downsize their lifestyle, moving into a more manageable home. For years, Samuel had been their safety net, but now, he wanted them to learn to stand on their own feet. For Lily, the email was both vindication and a turning point. She had always lived by the values her grandfather had taught her: independence, self-respect, and resilience. Now, those values were being reinforced across the family. But she knew the transition wouldn't be easy. The fallout was immediate. Emily, once the family's golden child, struggled the most. Her lavish lifestyle, curated for Instagram, began to unravel. Her posts dwindled from glamorous vacations and designer purchases to pictures of quiet evenings at home. Lily received a tearful phone call from Emily, who admitted the depths of her financial struggles. "I didn't realize how much I was relying on Grandpa," Emily confessed. "I thought I could keep it all together, but I can't." Lily listened patiently, resisting the urge to say, "I told you so." Instead, she replied, "It's not too late to figure things out. You're stronger than you think." Their conversation ended on a tentative but hopeful note. It wasn't an apology, but it was a start. Meanwhile, Margaret and Thomas began adjusting to a simpler life. They had sold their luxury home in Arizona and moved into a modest condominium. In an email to Lily, her mother wrote, "I see now that we should have planned better. I know we didn't always treat you fairly, and I'm sorry for that." Lily stared at the words, letting them sink in. It wasn't the sweeping apology she might have dreamed of, but it was a step toward acknowledgement. She replied briefly, thanking her mother for her honesty while keeping the conversation light. Months passed, and life in Seattle moved forward. Lily's career continued to thrive, her biotech research team was gaining recognition, and she was mentoring younger colleagues, something that brought her unexpected joy. Outside of work, she joined a book club and started volunteering at a local nonprofit, finding new ways to connect with her community. Then, one day, an invitation from Emily arrived in her inbox. It was for a casual dinner at Emily's new, modest home. The tone was warm and uncharacteristically humble. "I'd love for you to come. No expectations, just family." Lily hesitated, unsure if she was ready. But as she reread the email, she decided to give it a chance. Emily's home was small but welcoming, a far cry from the grand spaces she had once flaunted. The dinner table was simple but carefully set, and the conversation felt genuine. For the first time in years, Lily felt like she was truly seeing her sister, not the polished image Emily projected, but the person underneath. After dinner, Emily handed Lily a small package. Inside was a framed photo of the two of them as children, sitting on a swing set in their grandfather's backyard. "I've been holding on to this," Emily said, her voice trembling. "I don't know how to fix everything, but I want to try." Lily smiled, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. "This is a good start," she said softly. As Lily drove home that evening, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. Her family was still flawed, still figuring things out, but they were trying. And so was she. It was a reminder that change didn't happen all at once, it came in small, sometimes hesitant steps. The Seattle skyline glimmered in the distance as she parked outside her apartment. Inside, she found a small package waiting on her doorstep. It was from her grandfather, a simple pearl necklace accompanied by a handwritten note: "True strength lies in standing on your own. You've shown this family what that looks like. I'm proud of you. Love, Grandpa." Lily placed the necklace around her neck, its cool weight a symbol of everything she had fought for. Looking out at the city lights, she felt a quiet hope for the future, not just for herself, but for her family. They weren't perfect, but they were learning. And in their small, messy steps forward, there was a kind of beauty. The rain began to fall softly outside, but for the first time in a long time, Lily didn't mind. She smiled, ready for whatever came next. The first snowfall of the season dusted Seattle's streets as Lily Harper sat by her apartment window, a steaming mug of tea in her hands. The city skyline sparkled against the gray sky, but her thoughts were elsewhere, on her family, their struggles, and the fragile hope that things might finally be changing. It had been nearly a year since that tumultuous Thanksgiving in Hawaii, and though the wounds from that weekend still lingered, there were signs of healing. When Lily walked away from her family's gathering at the Fairmont Orchid, she hadn't expected her actions to set off a chain of events that would reshape their lives. Samuel Harper, the family's patriarch, had taken swift and decisive action, sending an email that outlined a new approach to supporting the family. For Emily, Lily's younger sister, the adjustment had been particularly jarring. Once the family's golden child, Emily had built her life on the foundation of their grandfather's generosity. But Samuel's decision to end regular financial support forced her to confront a reality she had long avoided. Gone were the Instagram posts showcasing luxury vacations and designer handbags. In their place were quieter, more authentic moments, her son, Amy, playing in their modest new backyard or a simple family dinner at home. Emily reached out to Lily not long after the changes began. "I know I've been awful to you," she admitted over the phone, her voice raw with emotion. "I didn't realize how much I was taking for granted. I'm trying to be better, for Amy, for Brian, and for myself." Lily's initial instinct was to keep her guard up, but something in Emily's tone gave her pause. "It's not about being perfect," Lily replied. "It's about trying. And it sounds like you're doing that." Margaret and Thomas, Lily's parents, also faced their share of challenges. After selling their upscale retirement home in Arizona, they moved into a smaller condominium. At first, the adjustment was difficult. But over time, they found joy in a simpler lifestyle, taking morning walks together, exploring local farmers markets, and reconnecting with old hobbies. One afternoon, Lily received an email from her mother. "Lily, I know we haven't always been fair to you. I see now how much you've done on your own, and I'm sorry if we ever made you feel less than. We're proud of you." The words caught Lily off guard. Her parents had never been ones to acknowledge their mistakes, and while the email didn't erase years of hurt, it felt like a step forward. She replied with a short but heartfelt note, expressing her appreciation for their effort. As for Lily, life in Seattle continued to thrive. Her career at the biotech firm reached new heights with a promotion to senior director. She found joy in mentoring young researchers and giving back to her community through volunteer work. Beyond her professional success, she also began to cultivate a sense of balance, taking time for quiet moments, long walks, and evenings spent reading by the fire. Then, one day, a surprising invitation arrived, an email from Emily inviting Lily to Thanksgiving dinner at her home. The tone was warm and humble. "I'd love for you to come. Things are different now, and I think you'll see that. No pressure, just family." Lily hesitated, the memory of last year's tension still fresh. But something told her to go. When she arrived at Emily's house, she was greeted not by the grandeur of their old life but by something far more welcoming. The small home was cozy and decorated simply with handmade crafts Amy had created. The dinner table was modest but thoughtfully set, and the atmosphere was one of warmth and connection. Over dinner, the family laughed and shared stories, the conversation free of the performative undertones that had once dominated their gatherings. Emily opened up about her journey, admitting how difficult it had been to adjust but also how much better she felt now. "I didn't think I could live without all the extras," she said, "but it turns out, I didn't need them. What I needed was this. After the meal, Emily handed Lily a small package. Inside was a handwritten letter and a simple bracelet. "The bracelet is something small," Emily said, her voice trembling. "But the letter is what really matters. I wanted to put into words everything I've been meaning to say." Lily felt a lump rise in her throat as she looked at her sister. "Thank you," she said softly. "This means more than you know." Driving home that night, Lily reflected on how far they had all come. The road hadn't been easy, and there was still a long way to go, but for the first time, she felt a sense of peace about her family. They weren't perfect, no family was, but they were trying. And that effort made all the difference. When Lily arrived at her apartment, a small package was waiting for her. Inside was a pearl necklace from her grandfather and a note, "Lily, thank you for being the example this family needed. Your strength has reminded us all of what matters most. Love, Grandpa." She placed the necklace around her neck, its cool weight a reminder of the journey she had taken, not just in the past year but throughout her life. Looking out at the city lights, Lily felt a quiet optimism for the future, not because everything had been resolved, but because they were all finally moving forward together. The snow continued to fall softly as Lily curled up with her tea. Her family's story wasn't finished, but it didn't need to be. Growth, after all, wasn't about a perfect ending, it was about the small, steady steps that led to something better. The crisp fall air in Seattle was invigorating as Lily Harper strolled along the waterfront, the faint sound of waves mingling with the chatter of families enjoying the holiday weekend. It was Thanksgiving again, a year after the most transformative one of her life. As she watched a group of children toss breadcrumbs to seagulls, she reflected on the journey that had brought her and her family to this new place of understanding. A year earlier, Thanksgiving had been a breaking point for Lily. Excluded from the family's reservations at a luxurious resort in Hawaii, she'd walked away, not just from the holiday but from the years of dysfunction that had defined her relationship with her family. It was a moment of clarity, but it also marked the beginning of change. Her grandfather, Samuel Harper, had responded decisively, restructuring the financial support that had propped up her family for decades. For Emily, Lily's younger sister, it meant confronting the unsustainable lifestyle she had built on their grandfather's wealth. For their parents, Margaret and Thomas, it meant adjusting to a simpler way of living. For Lily, it was a chance to focus on the life she had worked so hard to build, free from the guilt and frustration that had long weighed on her. Emily's transformation had been the most surprising. Moving to a modest suburban home had forced her to let go of the curated life she had once showcased on Instagram. When Lily visited Emily's house for the first time, it wasn't to attend an extravagant dinner or a showy family event. Instead, it was for a simple afternoon together, where Emily proudly showed off the garden she had planted with her son, Amy. "I never thought I'd enjoy this kind of life," Emily admitted, brushing dirt off her hands. "But there's something peaceful about it. It feels real." Lily had smiled, feeling the first stirrings of hope. Real is a good place to start. Their parents had also begun to adapt. Downsizing from their sprawling Arizona home to a smaller condominium had been a challenge at first, but it had brought them closer. Margaret had taken up knitting again, something she hadn't done since Lily and Emily were children. Thomas had joined a local hiking group, rediscovering a love for nature. One day, Lily received an unexpected email from her mother. "Lily, I've been thinking about everything. I'm sorry for the times we didn't support you the way we should have. You've done so much on your own, and I see now how strong you've always been. I hope we can do better." It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was sincere. For Lily, that sincerity was enough to start mending the cracks in their relationship. As for Lily, her life in Seattle flourished. Her promotion to senior director at her biotech firm came with new challenges, but also the satisfaction of knowing her work was making a difference. Outside of work, she found fulfillment in small moments, mentoring young researchers, volunteering at a local food bank, and taking time to explore the city she loved. But the most meaningful changes were in her relationships. Her family, once defined by unspoken tensions and performative gestures, was slowly becoming something closer to what she had always hoped for. This Thanksgiving, Lily found herself back at Emily's home. The house was warm and inviting, filled with the smell of roasted turkey and the sound of Amy's laughter. The table wasn't set with expensive china or elaborate centerpieces, but with mismatched plates and a centerpiece Amy had made from leaves and pine cones. It was perfect. As they sat down to eat, Emily raised her glass. "This year, I'm thankful for second chances," she said, her voice steady but emotional. "And for family who sticks with you, even when you don't deserve it." Lily smiled, her chest tightening with gratitude. "Here's to second chances," she said, lifting her glass in return. After dinner, Emily handed Lily a small box. Inside was a bracelet with a delicate charm of a tree. "It's to remind you of how strong you are," Emily said softly. "And how much you mean to me." Lily felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you," she said. "It means a lot." That night, as Lily drove home through the quiet streets, she thought about how much had changed. Her family wasn't perfect, and there were still moments of tension, but they were trying. And for the first time, she believed they could get there, together. When she arrived at her apartment, a package was waiting for her on the doorstep. Inside was a handwritten note from her grandfather and a small, framed quote, "True strength comes not from what you take, but from what you give." Lily placed the frame on her desk, its words a quiet reminder of everything she had learned over the past year. Growth, she realized, wasn't about erasing the past. It was about facing it, learning from it, and finding the courage to move forward. As Lily Harper sat by her apartment window, the city lights of Seattle twinkling in the cold November air, she reflected on the unexpected journey of the past year. Her family's story had been one of transformation, not from perfect to even better, but from fractured and performative to something far more genuine. It hadn't been easy, and it certainly wasn't finished, but the small steps they had taken together had made all the difference. Thanksgiving at Emily's home had been the clearest sign of that growth. Gone were the pretenses, the subtle jabs, and the layers of resentment that had once hung over their gatherings. In their place was warmth, honesty, and an unspoken understanding that they were all learning how to rebuild. Lily thought back to Emily's toast, her voice cracking as she said, "I'm thankful for second chances, and for family who stays, even when you don't deserve it." Those words had stayed with Lily, a reminder of the power of humility and forgiveness. The bracelet Emily had given her, a delicate charm of a tree, now rested on Lily's wrist. It felt symbolic of everything they had been through, roots in the same soil, branches that grew in different directions, yet still connected. It was a reminder that even the most strained relationships could find new life when given time, effort, and grace. Lily's journey wasn't just about her family, it was about herself. She had learned the importance of standing firm in her values, even when it meant stepping away from those she loved. Walking away from the toxic dynamics of the past had been an act of courage, but it had also opened the door for change. Sometimes, Lily realized, you had to stop enabling dysfunction for healing to begin. Her grandfather's wisdom, "True strength comes not from what you take, but from what you give," resonated deeply as she thought about how his decision to restructure his financial support had forced everyone to reassess their priorities. For Emily, it meant learning to value simplicity and authenticity. For her parents, it meant rediscovering purpose and gratitude in a quieter, more sustainable life. And for Lily, it meant finding the balance between self-reliance and connection. This lesson extends far beyond family dynamics. In today's fast-paced, image-driven world, it's easy to measure success by external markers, wealth, appearances, or social validation. But Lily's story reminds us that true fulfillment comes from within, from building a life grounded in integrity, authenticity, and a willingness to grow through challenges. As Thanksgiving approached once again, Lily found herself filled with gratitude, not just for the progress her family had made, but for the strength she had found in herself. The journey wasn't perfect, and the work wasn't done, but she was ready to keep moving forward. Her family's story is a reminder to all of us: growth doesn't happen overnight, and healing isn't about erasing the past but learning from it. Whether it's repairing relationships, finding balance in life, or pursuing personal goals, the process requires patience, courage, and the belief that change is always possible. And in the end, those small, steady steps forward are what truly lead us to brighter tomorrows.